First question comes from Timbo Thomas. He says, is it possible we could start 5-0? When you look at our schedule, obviously when I did my first schedule review, which you can go watch on the channel, it was pre-draft. So now that this is after the draft, we kind of got a good look at everybody's roster, everybody's final roster at least. We know who the key players are going to be. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's start with them, obviously, game one. We're going to be at home at Hard Rock for this game, going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When you look at what the Dolphins have struggled to do, I guess you could say 4 seasons, 5 seasons, give or take. I think in 2012 we had a really, for the first, I want to say 8 to 10 games, we had a really good run defense. Not since then have we had a solid run defense, and that was a solid run defense. We haven't had a great run defense since, I want to say, this, the Zach Thomas, Patrick Surtain, Tim Bowens, those teams. We haven't had like an all-around great defense since those guys. So when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously they improved, I guess, surrounding Jameis Winston with weapons, which he already had weapons. Obviously he has Mike Evans now and Deshaun Jackson that they got from free agency. So their passing attack is insane. The Jameis Winston Mike Evans connection was already pretty good. And then you look at their tight end situation where they had Cameron Brate, who came off of a breakout season. I think he caught 10 plus, or was 8. It was either 8 touchdowns or 10 touchdowns. He had a really good season in the red zone. And then you look at what they did in the draft. In the first round, they take O.J. Howard, who I guess they thought, it just makes their offense even more powerful and potent. This is on the offense, because the tight end was not a weakness on that offensive line. They passed up getting like somebody like a Cam Robinson or a Garrett Bowles or a Forrest Lamp or somebody like that to come in and really help protect the quarterback. They really didn't fix that issue that they had last season, which led to a ton of turnovers, and it led to inconsistencies in their run game. So we can take advantage of that. I think what I said pre-draft was the same thing. I think we can get after the quarterback. Jameis Winston is known for turning the ball over. His turnovers are off the charts his first 2 seasons in the NFL. I think he's thrown 30-plus interceptions his first 2 seasons, which that's worse than Geno Smith, and we all know Geno Smith, rest in peace. So it's going to be an interesting game, that first game. Much improved in the linebacker position, because I feel like the one reason our defense was so inconsistent last season was we didn't have a lot of continuity. We had interchangeable pieces coming in and out, in and out, in and out, and that really led to some inconsistencies. It led to different voices calling making the calls. It led to a lot of inconsistencies. So hopefully we have all of that cleaned up by the time we go against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, so the next game obviously is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. Now the Los Angeles Chargers, if they could stay healthy, they're one of the best teams in the AFC. Their offense, obviously with the addition of Mike Williams and what they did in the first, the second and third round, is insane. They obviously, one of the biggest problems they've had in terms of being consistent, even when they had their football team, was their offensive line. Same thing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they actually fixed their offensive line. They didn't fix it all the way. I still think there's holes at the tackle positions. I don't think those guys are elite by any stretch of the imagination. But when maybe they play Forrest. I doubt they'll play Forrest Lamp out of the interior. They've had trouble protecting Phillip Rivers. I think that's advantage us, but we have to go to LA to play them again. It's going to be a tough matchup. They have great tight ends in Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, Antonio Gates, Mike Williams on the outside, Keenan Allen if he can stay healthy, Tyrell Williams, who had a pretty dang good season, absent the rest of the pieces, Dontrell Inman. They have a really good offense. Their defense is nothing to sneeze at either. They have Eric Weddle, not Eric Weddle. They have Jaleel Adai. They have, Jason Verrett, and coming off the edges, they have Defensive Rookie of the Year, Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram. Their linebackers are pretty good with Denzel Perryman. So they have a really good football team. By far, out of the 5 games that I'm looking at right now, that is by far the biggest test the Miami Dolphins will have for the first 5 games of the season. It's not even close. That team is the most, if they're healthy, that team is by far the most ready-to-go team out of any of these teams. In terms of an all-around football team, I would say the Chargers, if healthy, are the deadliest opponent for the Miami Dolphins. And you know what? 2 really good back-to-back tests for our defense in terms of, we're going against some of the most high-powered offenses in the league. So those 2 are going to be some really good tests. Okay, so moving on from that, we have the New York Jets away. The interesting thing about the Jets is how much patience do they have with the organization, and how I don't think the organization is nowhere near as consistent. It's one of the most disorganized organizations in the NFL. When you have obviously they're in a real rebuilding process. This team is just, it's just interesting. I mean, are they going to stick with Todd Bowles and his vision for this team, or will he get fired during the season? It's going to be interesting to see, because that offense is atrocious. They lost, most of their big name guys. Brandon Marshall was a huge part of that offense. They're really old on the offense. They're obviously Nick Mangold, who's been their leader, who's been the mainstay of that franchise, one of the best players in the history of the franchise. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. It's gonna, they lost a lot of pieces on the offense. Josh McCown is, he's terrible. He's hot garbage. You look at, their defense, their front seven is one of the more talented front sevens in the NFL, with Muhammad Wilkerson, Leonard Williams, Sheldon Richardson, and even those 3 can't get along with each other. They're showing up late to team meetings. They're not listening to Todd Bowles. I mean, I don't know who's leading that team. Obviously, I think that was a huge reason why they drafted Jamal Adams, is because he's a leader, and they're hoping he can bring the Jets as a defense together. I don't know. It's gonna have to be, because the personalities on that team. The point is the Jets should not be much of a challenge for the Dolphins. They should be taking care of business against the Jets. That offense is atrocious. We shouldn't allow more than 10 points to them, and if max 17 points, and that's max. I guess the biggest test you could say would be that front seven. Or just the defensive line, not the front seven, but just the defensive line, because that secondary is still shaky. I know they drafted Marcus May and Jamal Adams, but that's just safeties. Their corners are big question marks. They really don't have a true number 1 corner or a true number 2. So the Jets shouldn't be much of a problem. Moving on from that, then we have to go. I think we got to go back on the road again, which is sad. Yeah, we have to go. Goodell wants to spread the word of the NFL. It's just force it down London's throat. We have to go play the Saints again. The Saints are a tough team, because obviously Drew Brees, if you have Drew Brees as your quarterback, you have a chance. Their defense is still bad. Obviously, they added Marshawn Lattimore, and then what the pick that they got from the Patriots, they use on an offensive lineman to protect Drew Brees and Ramczyk. But that offensive got worse, even though it's still super talented. The offense kind of got a little worse. Obviously, they added Adrian Peterson and Alvin Kamara, hoping can help them in the backfield. But their offense was already great, so that's, you can't get much better than 30 plus points a game. But their defense is still terrible. I don't think there's anything to be feared there. If we can get after Drew Brees, force some turnovers, if our defense can just play a good game, they don't even have to play a great game, just an okay game, we can win that football game. And then we go on the road, or we go back home against the Tennessee Titans, who by far, in terms of, this is, I think, the biggest measuring stick. I mean, at this point, we're 4 games into the season, and we're going against an opponent that just destroyed us last season. Obviously, we were extremely hurt, so hopefully we get some revenge here, and it's going to be a measuring stick. How much improved, when you look at the Titans, I mean, obviously they have Marcus Mariota, they have one of the best backfields in the NFL, and DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. How much improved is the Miami Dolphins run defense and the linebackers? I mean, Delaney Walker absolutely decimated the middle of the field off play actions. How much improved is the Miami Dolphins defense? That's going to be the biggest measuring stick. Not even because the Chargers, they're more of a passing attack than the Titans are, and obviously the Titans got a whole lot better on offense, adding Corey Davis, and that's the biggest measuring stick. So is it possible that the Miami Dolphins can start 5-0? Absolutely. The only game I'm really truly worried about would be the LA Chargers, because we have to go across country. At least when we play the Titans, we're at home, and I think we're a much improved football team. And I think that football team that was extremely hurt the last time we played them, it was actually a close game for most of the game. It wasn't like the Titans were going to win, and it was a close game. We just couldn't keep up with, our pass protection was god-awful that game. And that was the last we saw of Billy Turner. So I think it's possible. Hardest game, definitely the Chargers. Alright, this next question comes from David. He says, do you think the Finns might try to bring in another offensive lineman, one with a legitimate chance to compete for a starting job? Perhaps one that another team cuts during the preseason. it's so hard, man, because you can never predict who's going to get cut. Obviously, there's people like Mike Upati out there who are vets that probably would have a chance of getting cut. I doubt it, though, David. And, you know, from what I've heard from the Dolphins in interviews and, you know, just stuff that you hear around the league and stuff like that, you know, the Dolphins have made it very, very clear that they want continuity on the offensive line. They think that's most important than anything. I mean, you've heard Clyde talk about it. You've heard Adam talk about that continuity. It's very, very, very important to the Miami Dolphins offensive line. So when you look at our line right now, obviously we have Ted Larson, Jermon Bushrod, who Adam has defended with his heart and soul, saying that he was the highest rated offensive lineman from last year, which is total bullcrap. There is no way that Jermon Bushrod was he was the most, I guess he played the most out of anybody, because I think he started all 16 games. So that's one thing that Jermon Bushrod is he's going to be there week in and week out. You know, obviously that was his first year starting at guard. So I'm going to give him a little bit some slack, but he's obviously in his old age. So I don't think the Dolphins are. They have also said, this is a quote from, I think, Mike Tannenbaum or Adam, that you never know. It was Mike Tannenbaum. He said, if you never know what can happen in preseason if somebody gets cut, you always want to have the cap room left to go out and get somebody. So we've seen this before with the Dolphins. I don't think they would, because I think they have made it clear that they are comfortable with the people. So on a realistic thought, no, I don't think they would. I think they've said, they've made it clear that we're comfortable with the guys we have. They think that they have added serious depth on the offensive line with obviously Anthony Steen, Sam Young, I think Ted Larson. I think Isaac, even if he isn't a starter, he's obviously some serious depth there. So they've added some serious depth. So I think, no, David, I don't think they would, even if something did happen. Like, let's say Mikey Potty got cut. I don't think they would. It would. I don't think they would. I think they've made it clear, no. On a realistically, I don't think they would. No. This next question comes from Carlos Chavez, which is an amazing name. He says, if Ryan Tannehill does bad in 2017, where is our next quarterback coming from, free agency or via the draft? It's a great question. I don't think it's I get this question all the time. What happens if Tannehill does bad? He had a really good season last season. He is our franchise quarterback. I have all the faith in the world. Clearly, a lot of Dolphins fans are still unsure, and I understand why. But so if let's say Ryan Tannehill does have a bad season, in the 2018 NFL Draft, it is stacked. It has three major quarterbacks that you can name right off the top of your head. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's the most flashy one, even though I don't think his game translates to the NFL. I got to see more from him as a pocket passer this upcoming season at Louisville. Obviously, Louisville very famous for crap and producing. Well, no, I guess recently, not famous for it. But obviously, Teddy Bridgewater came out of there. Has been a franchise quarterback for the Vikings, unfortunately, the knee issue. So Lamar Jackson is probably the guy that everybody looks to, right? Then you have, obviously, Sam Darnold. So Sam Darnold, obviously, in my opinion, is probably the most NFL pro-ready quarterback out of all of them. I mean, unless he falls off the map this upcoming season, which could happen. And there's always a no-name guy who pops up in scouting circles and NFL, combine rooms that surprises a lot of people. But Sam Darnold, in my opinion, the third I'm about to talk about, I think is the most pro-ready, and I think if he doesn't fall off a cliff, will be the first overall pick. Because Lamar Jackson, I still need to see a little bit more from, for him to say that's a franchise quarterback. And then the next guy would be Josh Allen. I always forget this kid's name. I swear to God, if I forget this, but Josh Allen. Hopefully, I got his name right. I get him mixed up with so many other players, but he's obviously a small school kid. Big guy. He looks just from his physical traits. He's a potential guy, I would say. Josh Allen is not. I haven't seen. Obviously, I think Lamar Jackson, and I've seen way more from Lamar and Sam than I have from Josh. But Josh Allen's another guy who looks like a prototypical NFL quarterback, franchise guy. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent with his accuracy. But that quarterback class is really, really good, and it has three potential franchise quarterbacks in it, which is saying a lot. I mean, and obviously there could be a guy that we haven't even heard of, like Carson Wentz. Nobody was talking about going into the season, and we saw what happened with Carson Wentz. And same thing with Dak. So there could always be that guy that has a great college football season, but Baker Mayfield and all those guys. But those three, I would keep my eye on. So if Tannehill does bad, Adam Gase would for sure draft one of those guys, I would say. If he does bad, I think Ryan Tannehill is way more talented than any of those guys. I think he's a franchise guy, but if he did do bad, those are the guys that he would definitely be looking at, yes. This next question comes from E. Steven. He says, any current free agents you would like the Dolphins to target now that the draft is over? If so, who? So if there's any... Okay, so any free agents that are left, that are still out there, I mean, I've said it time and time again, and, you know, I still think it still reigns true out of any other free agent, because I like the depth that we've added, and most of the defensive talent that we added in the draft is young talent, so there's no reason to go out and get somebody who's going to stop that development. The only position that we didn't do that with was free safety. Or strong safety. On the Dolphins defense, it doesn't matter what position it is. They're interchangeable. So I would definitely still say it was Darrelle Revis. I still think it's Darrelle Revis. I think Darrelle Revis can add that leadership. He can add the talent. I think he still has all the athletic ability in the world. Obviously, he was playing hurt last season. He didn't even get a whole offseason in because of injuries. So I think a whole offseason behind him. And I know a lot of people bring up the passion with Darrelle. I mean, the way the Jets treated him, the way the Jets team was last season, it was so dysfunctional. How can you blame the guy? And obviously he was dealing with injuries, but I think Darrelle Revis adds that free safety. He's a great open field tackler. So he's like a Charles Woodson. He's a hard-nosed corner. So tackling's not going to be an issue. He can actually play in the box. He's a pretty physical guy. I wouldn't want him to do that. Obviously, I think Rashard Jones can do that just fine. Obviously, he's got injury history there, so I wouldn't want him to get that physical. But he can be a thief on the back end. With his instincts, he knows the division in and out. He's a great, I mean, his versatility alone, obviously we gave up the most touchdowns to tight ends. Him being able to guard the tight end at an elite level, he's got the size to do it. And him being able to come down and guard a running back at an elite level, or even move him to nickelback. When TJ comes back, we can move him down to nickelback. You know, slot corner role, any package, you know, he adds versatility to the defense, and it would be a cool thing for Matt Burke to have on the defense, just him adding that versatility. And like I said, he can totally hold down the safety role until TJ comes back. I mean, if there was any free agent left, he would definitely be the guy that I think would add the most value to the Miami Dolphins, yeah, for sure. This next question comes from Jeremy. He says, what should the Miami Dolphins' main problem of focus be on offense and defense? This is what they have, in terms of their main problems on offense and defense, and what they have to be focused on in terms of improving both of these problems. For the offense, it has to be third down conversion rate. It has to be offensive snaps. The Miami Dolphins cannot, if they want to be a consistent football team, if they want to be an elite football team, if they want to be an offense to be feared on a consistent basis, week in and week out, they have to do better on third down. We cannot be second to last in the NFL on third down conversion rate. That is absolutely atrocious. Absolutely cannot be last in the NFL in offensive snaps taken. This offense is too dang talented to not be on the field more. We have to do better on first and second down and getting on third and shorts. We have to do better even if we get a third and 15. If you want to be an elite offense in the NFL, you have to convert those. You just have to. I don't care. And play. I mean, that's what makes Aaron Rodgers. That's what makes Russell Wilson. That's what makes those offenses so good, is they just make plays on third down. Now Tannehill has to do a better job of that, and that's not just Tannehill's fault, it's the team around him. They have to be way more consistent, and I think it's going to improve drastically. Now the only thing that I would say is a question mark is this problem exceeds Adam Gase. We had the same problem with Bill Lazor. We just could not convert third downs, and that was because of the offensive line those years. This past season, obviously consistency on the offensive line really affected that, of our ability to pass protect on third down, which really hurt the numbers. But we cannot, I mean, we were barely better than the Rams on third down. That Rams team was one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in all the years I've watched football. So we cannot be even in the same conversation as those guys, because our offense is so much more talented. And I think the additions that we made on the offensive line, I think, adds durability and consistency. And I think the comfortability within Adam Gase's offense is really gonna allow the team to get off to a faster start. And be way more consistent on third down. And like I said, we have to improve our offensive snaps. We cannot be in last in the NFL, and we have to be better on third down conversion rate. We cannot be second to last in the NFL in that category. So those are the two things on offense. Now on defense, every Dolphins fan knows exactly what I'm about to say, especially if you made it this far in this video. You're real hardcore. It's the same thing that everybody said. Every expert says, everybody says, just keep spewing it out of their mouth. I'm going to just switch it up a little bit. But the thing that the Dolphins have to focus on being better on is first and second down. And how they do that is they need, obviously we're hoping and praying that the linebacker core is better. And we're hoping and praying coverage at that position is better. We're hoping and praying safety coverage is better also, obviously, because that all that plays into the middle of the football field. Obviously, the slot corner role, all of that plays into the crap in the middle of the football field. We're all hoping all of those things have been improved, because last season it was bad. We have to stop the run, and I know everybody's like, oh, it's everybody says, but when you look at the statistics, the Dolphins were #1 on third down defense. And the reason is that if we got you in third and distance, which was rare because of our atrocious because of our bad run defense, but when we did, you're not converting that. Our pass rush is too lethal. There's no way you're gonna get enough time with Cameron Wake and Sue on the same defensive line. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about third down defense at all, because the statistics show that we were an elite defense on third down. But when it comes to what teams did to nullify that and teams did to counteract that is easy. All they did was run the ball down our throat, and they abused the quick passing game. And, you know, a lot of delayed handoffs, things because of our wide nine defense. Everybody was rushing upfield. So we have to just do better on first and second down. This next question comes from Clayton, yo. He says, do you believe Devon I can't say his last name. You guys know what I'm talking about. Defensive tackle from LSU. Or Vincent Taylor will start next to Sue because of Jordan Phillips being very inconsistent. To be honest with you guys, I'm hoping, because, again, everybody likes the new sexy thing, but Jordan Phillips is still a developmental guy, and coming out of college, he was an athletic freak. He just cannot be consistent to save that. He just can't. So there is a chance, because, you know, both those guys have some extreme pass rushing talent. They're extremely all-around players, I would say, because they're, there's questions if Devon has the strength to play on the next level, and we will see. But yeah, I think those two definitely have a chance to unseat Jordan Phillips because he's just so inconsistent. So yeah, I think there would be a good chance for sure to Clayton. This next question comes from Mikkel Hansen. He says, how much do you think the Dolphins have improved this offseason and this draft? Well, I think they've improved drastically. I think defensive line, and I've talked about this before. I'm going to try, because this video is running a little long, I'm going to try to answer this as quick as I possibly can. But the defensive line has had depth issues. We've had trouble closing games out. We've had stopgap players like C.J. Mosley, Jason Jones, to name a few, come through this building. And it was really nice that we added the depth and the talent, especially defensive tackle and at the defensive end spots, even with the trade with William Hayes. I think, and then obviously revamping the linebacker core with Kiko Alonso, who should have been a Pro Bowler last season, and then Lawrence Timmons, who's been a Pro Bowler, who played like a Pro Bowler last season, and then you got Raekwon McMillan, who I think has some serious talent, and then TJ McDonald, the addition of him. We can still make, who knows, we might get Darrelle Revis. So I think the only thing we didn't address was the safety position. In terms of the offensive side of the ball, I think we improved both lines, which in the NFL, first thing you got to build is your offensive and defensive line. I think our defensive line is going to be one of the most feared this upcoming season. I think it's one of the most talented in the NFL. I think our offensive line, the two things we really improved on was depth and durability. I think those two things have been drastically improved. And I think those two things were the most... some people would bring up the secondary, and I think the cornerbacks they looked really good for how young they were last season. So I'm not really concerned about that. Only thing I'm really concerned about holes-wise is the free safety position. It's going to be interesting to see how well Nate Allen plays, and I hope he plays well. But I think the Dolphins have drastically improved the roster with the depth, young talent. What you're going to see is the young talent from last season. Obviously, we drafted most of offense last season, but I think you're going to see those guys take huge steps this upcoming season. Kenyon Drake, that class was really good. They all contributed. Some of them won us games. So I think Kenyon, Leonte, Jakeem, I think all three of those guys are going to take huge steps this upcoming season, especially Leonte and especially Kenyon. And obviously, Laramie is probably, you could make an argument, that he's the best left tackle in the AFC. So I think we've drastically improved for sure. This next question comes from Alberto, and I'm sorry I say that like Jeff Bridges and every other crap in Western. I sound like an idiot when I say your name. I apologize. But he says, how long will it take Charles Harris and Isaac Asiata to unseat Branch and Larson respectively? By far, Ted Larson's getting his butt out of there. I guarantee you guys. Quote me. Isaac Asiata will be a week 1 starter. Charles Harris, I'm not gonna say he's gonna. I'm not for sure about it because I haven't seen him play. And I can say that without seeing Isaac because I've seen Ted Larson play. But Andre Branch is not. He's a pretty dang good defensive end. So it's gonna be interesting to see how far along Charles Harris is. But Ted Larson is getting his balls out of there. Alright, this is the last question I'm going to do. This comes from Ian Good. He says, could you see any undrafted free agent making the roster? I like Chase Allen, Devon Smith, and Praise, and Marquise Smith. By far, Devon Smith. I cannot wait to see him play in preseason. If anything, he's definitely going to make the practice squad. He definitely has a chance to make the roster. Adam Gase loves his running backs. It's going to be interesting to see how good Devon Smith is, but I would say Chase Allen has a chance for special teams. He has a chance to make it on special teams for sure. Devon Smith definitely has a chance to make the roster. I would say out of all of those guys, definitely Devon Smith. So that is going to be it, guys. I am Skagster1083. I didn't answer a lot of questions because some of these questions took a lot to answer. There was a lot to address. These were deep questions you guys asked, okay? It's not my fault that you guys asked these deep crapping questions. Alright, and I know I ramble on. I apologize. But if I didn't get your question in, if I didn't answer your question, you can be darn sure that I will you're definitely going to be in the credits of this video, and you're definitely going to be in the podcast this upcoming Wednesday. So I'm sorry if I missed you guys. I appreciate the community. I think we have the coolest community on YouTube. I think we have the coolest community of any sports channel, that's for sure. And I think that's what makes this channel unique, is we have this banter back and forth, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a blessing and a great opportunity to do this with you guys, and I appreciate it. So yeah, let the credits roll.